Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Welcome back to another episode of Well, Hello Anxiety. I'm your host, of course, Dr. Jodi Richardson, and my guest today is here to talk to us about a topic that some have gone as far to say is the next pandemic. And when I typed it into Google, I was quickly served 415 million results. So this highlights both the need for information and the sea of options that we can all choose from when we're searching for help with this particular topic. One of the things that I absolutely love about podcasting, there's so much I love about it, but just one of the things and one of the most important things is that I can introduce you to professionals who have a deep understanding of their area of expertise. And I'm excited to introduce you to one such professional today, here to talk to us about ending body burnout, is Filly Bellette. Welcome, Filly, and thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, I'm very excited to be chatting with you today, Jodi. Thank you.
It's nice. I was on Filly and Chris's podcast, and so it's nice to sort of turn the tables. So, Filly, is it okay if I call you Filly, or would you prefer Philippa? Filly's okay?
Filly is great.
Awesome. Filly is the co-founder, together with her husband Chris, of the multi-award-winning health practice Chris and Filly Functional Medicine. Filly is a clinical nutritionist, a functional medicine practitioner, a trauma therapist, a PhD scholar and author, and she is joining us from Tasmania. And so for our overseas listeners outside of Australia, Tasmania is the state that is the little island off the southern coast of the east part of Australia, and we affectionately call it Tassie. So, Filly, can you start by telling us where your story begins, please?
Yeah, okay. I kind of feel like my story started as a kid, where I was more of a shy, low confident, bit anxious, although definitely wouldn't have classified that as a child.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of similar to when you shared your story. It's like, yeah, it kind of started as a kid. But what happened over time was I felt like I wasn't ever good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't as popular as my older sisters. And then in high school, I remember all of a sudden I started getting good grades. I kind of wasn't even trying, but then I'm like, oh, A pluses and straight A's. And I started getting quite a lot of external validation.
Yeah.
From teachers. And I mean, my parents thought it was pretty cool too, although there was no pressure from them for me to perform. But I just developed these high achieving or overachieving patterns and perfectionism and black and white thinking. And like I always had to show up perfectly in order to feel okay about myself. I didn't understand that back at the time why I was doing that. But in hindsight, that's kind of what was happening. Then I went into doing a PhD at quite a young age. I was in my early 20s, and so I had a lot of imposter syndrome. And again, I wouldn't have said that I had anxiety back then, but there were definitely signs of it for sure. I was very, again, just high achieving, working my butt off, never going on holidays, and always feeling like what I was putting out was never good enough. Then I had a baby on the day that my PhD came back, and the report came back. It took me like literally probably 4 weeks for me to actually read through the report because my first birth was quite traumatic. So it was a 3-day labor, very long pushing time, and I had a lot of trauma both in my bowel and my bladder. So probably the more significant thing was I had no sensation to urinate. So I had to use an internal catheter for about 3 or 4 months to retrain my bladder to actually be able to pee on its own. And during that time, I had a lot of antibiotics. I was in and out of hospital for different complications, and my baby screamed all the time. She had really bad colic. And just after that, like eventually my bladder healed, but I found month after month, I just started developing more and more weird health issues. So there was definitely anxiety, postnatal depression, But also a lot of gut issues, hormonal imbalances, chronic pain, to the point that sometimes my back was so sore that I couldn't get out of bed that day, or I couldn't lift my child up. Chemical sensitivity, started developing weird sensations by like smelling candles. And over time too, like things just accumulated until Poppy was 1 year old. And I literally felt like an 80-year-old. And I'd gone to the GP and she was very lovely, but at the end of the day, nothing really showed up on blood tests. She was kind of like, I think this might just be what it's like to be a new mum. Just give it time. But the more time I gave it, the worse I actually felt. And so Poppy turned 1 and I'm like, I have to do something. And that's when I found nutrition and really looked at what I was eating. Prior to me changing the way that I was eating a very standard Australian diet. So a lot of processed foods, thought it was healthy, but not really. It was causing or exacerbating inflammation in my body. So I completely changed the way that I was eating to more traditional whole foods. And then over time, I just started finding more and more modalities that helped me get to the deeper root cause of why my body was literally burnt out and screaming at me.
Filly, thank you so much for kind of revisiting that really difficult time. And it was obviously quite a turning point, but it's funny, isn't it, how when you reflect on a really difficult time, you can explain what happened in an articulate way, but it's very hard to convey the experience of it, the emotions, the pain, the distress, and the challenge, and especially in amongst all of that, with all of your own suffering, trying to be a mum and trying to parent. And I really appreciate that you are able to share that with us. And I imagine there are a lot of listeners who are going, yeah, I relate to that. But when it comes to medicine, you've been to the GP and the classic, nothing's showing up, but there's clearly something wrong. And so no doubt what you've been through has led you to where you are today as an expert, helping thousands of clients with body burnout. And we've talked about burnout before on the podcast. And what I love about this opportunity to talk to you is that what you're going to share today is I know it's because I know your work is going to be different. It's going to be complementary to what listeners may have learned if they've already listened to other episodes that I've done with different experts. But certainly your approach is very holistic, and I really am excited to sort of get stuck into it. So perhaps you use the term body burnout, whereas in the past it's just sort of been referred to as burnout. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we coined the term body burnout. So most people know what burnout is. It's like you've been going hard for too long, burning the candles at both ends, and now your system's kind of like exhausted. Frazzled, yeah. So body burnout. So we use that term in two ways. First of all, sometimes people get to the point of burnout where going on a 2-week holiday, they feel no different. And so when that happens, when it's not just about, oh, I had a really great sleep and now I feel better, that's great. But if someone's really at a point of body burnout, it's generally where they're trying to rest and recover, or they're having time off work, but they're still not improving. And so that's where there's generally, actually always, body system imbalances that have broken down, become imbalanced, burnt out because of chronic stress that causes burnout. And so body burnout, so we have a functional medicine practice, which if your listeners don't know what that is, it sits in the natural therapy space. So we're treating the body naturally and holistically and really looking at root causes, but we're also using scientific lab testing that goes beyond what GPs and medical specialists test for. So that was my experience of, I did the tests, which is really important, because if something's really out of whack or you're developing a disease, you want to know about that. But then there's a lot of people that kind of slip in between the cracks where their body they have imbalances and there's significant things happening inside the body, but it's just not showing up on a GP test. And that's where functional lab testing kind of like looks deeper into the actual functioning of different types of body systems.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I wonder, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of our daughter. She doesn't mind that I speak about her. I don't speak about her often, but I think about the headaches that she gets. And I think about all the testing that's been done that shows no apparent reason for the headaches. And that, yes, whilst I've ventured down the natural therapies pathway, I sort of feel like a renewed inspiration to kind of, maybe chat to you off air about perhaps where we could go next. But I wonder if listeners are thinking too that, we instinctively know when something's not right, and it's really nice to be able to introduce the functional medicine approach because there's so much that can be done, but you've got to understand what's happening underneath kind of the symptoms that people are experiencing to be able to then know how to kind of make positive progress. And I wonder if you can share what you're seeing in a typical client so that listeners, because it's interesting when I've mentioned burnout. I don't specifically speak on burnout, but sometimes it comes up in presentations. And I have had someone say to me, because I've made the assumption when I've been talking about it that people would understand the word. And somebody once said, "Can you just tell me exactly what you mean by that?" So what does it look like in a client? What sort of experience is it when you've got somebody coming to you, they're presenting, they need help, they're really struggling. What do you notice and what do you start to see on tests?
Yeah, so signs. So the three big symptoms that almost every client of ours have, they have at least one. Energy, mood, gut issues are kind of like the three predominant ones that show up first. So energy and mood kind of make sense, and it's connected to the whole burnout presentation. But also we often have clients who are not just tired, but chronically fatigued. So it's now almost turned into a bit of an autoimmune type condition. Mood and energy issues could also look like brain fog. Mental clarity isn't there anymore. Even like hormonal issues, low libido. Mood issues can show up as anxiety, depression, or something in between, whether that's just irritability or just noticing that you're not coping with stresses like you used to. And gut issues are interesting, and it's not usually something that people think about when they think about burnout. But when the body's been in such a state of chronic stress and has been on for so long, your body goes into a fight-flight response. And so in that fight-flight response, your body is really just gauging or always looking for danger. And so it's more about survival as opposed to thriving. And when we're in the fight-flight response, you can't actually rest or digest properly. So start seeing sleep issues or insomnia, but definitely gut issues where your gut is just like, we don't even know how to break down food anymore. We're not producing the digestive juices to be able to do that. And in a chronic stressed state, your immune system gets really suppressed as well. So a lot of our clients either are showing up with catching all the things, cold, flus, and infections. That was part of my picture too, actually, when I was very sick, getting flus and infections every 2 weeks. I'd get over something and then I'd be slammed with something else. And on the other side, it could also show up as an overreactive or hypervigilant immune system where people are developing food allergies and sensitivities or autoimmune type conditions. So I kind of like energy, mood, gut issues, inflammatory issues, but I also just label it like weird health issues where it's like, I'm not fitting into a box in terms of I don't have diabetes or thyroid issues, although thyroid issues is really common. I'm just like got all these weird health issues and I don't know why.
Yeah. It's I love that you put it like that because sometimes it's just like I don't know where I fit, I don't know what's wrong, but something's definitely wrong and something definitely needs to be done. And what you said before in the reading and the learning that I've done around burnout, this idea that a big holiday or a couple of weeks off, it's when it comes to burnout, it's not enough because like you say, your system is in a state where even if you do get a little bit of time off, I mean, often anyone who works is working and taking a break from work often finds it takes 3 or 4 days to kind of even feel like they're relaxing. But this idea that even as you talk about the gut with anxiety, listeners will have learned before that when we are in fight or flight, that the life-saving measures are switched on, and the non-life-saving measures are down-regulated, being digestion being one of them. And so it absolutely makes sense that if you're in this chronic state of stress, that the gut issues are a really big part of that. And for people, I know that there'll be listeners thinking, this sounds like me, like, oh my gosh, this is actually really ringing true, but I can't stop. How am I gonna make change? I feel, especially for people like my age, people who are in the throes of working and parenting and caring for elderly parents, kind of feeling like, oh, there's this merry-go-round of things to do, and this question as to when and how can I start to make change that's going to make a difference. My next question I'd really love you to say is, what if you do nothing? Where can it lead to? If because the thing is, it's kind of like make the change now or you'll be forced to later, in essence, I suppose. So kind of a two-part question. What if people feel this way, recognise it, but do nothing? And then I'd really love for us to start to talk about what are the kind of the 4 key areas that you work on, and perhaps how listeners might on their own be able to start to make, a little bit of positive change, and of course how you work with clients to make a difference. That is so many questions. So back to the first one. What if people do nothing?
Okay, I follow.
I'll steer us through this. So many questions.
Okay, so if you did nothing, well, 2 things are going to happen. Either nothing changes and you stay the same, or you get worse, which is often what will happen, because here's the thing. This is how I think about the body and the symptoms that are manifesting from it, is that our body's evolved for safety and survival, but also we have the higher part of our brain that wants us to thrive and have a wonderful and happy life. Pain is amazing. Like, pain is so good at getting our attention. And so if someone is feeling pain, but they're kind of like, I feel it, I can understand that something's going on, but I'm not going to do anything about it, the pain's probably not high enough yet. So you could listen to it. And we do get quite a lot of clients too who are very health conscious, who maybe have like quite mild symptoms. We also get some people who just want a car service as well. It's just like, just want to peer underneath the surface and see if everything's fine. So that's preventative medicine, which is wonderful. But if you're someone who's kind of like stuck in this stuckness, then, and you're not really wanting, whether it's ready, willing, able to change yet, then maybe the pain just isn't high enough. And the thing is, like, in our unconscious mind, our higher part of ourselves, the best part of ourselves wants the best for us. Yeah. And so it's always going to send us pretty strong signals to help us return back to ourselves and to feel safe and to feel worthwhile. And so the body will speak to you, and it will continue to speak loud and clear, and sometimes often amp up the pain until you get to a point where you must listen. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I kind of feel like if someone's kind of in this space, then you don't have to do anything. Like, if your current way of being is working for you, that's cool, but you'll probably get to a point where the pain is high enough, and it might not even be physical. So I actually feel like the thing that really tipped me to really knuckling down and getting to the root of what was going on inside my body wasn't the physical health issues or the mental health issues. It was the fact that I felt like a dragon mum, and like I was psychologically damaging my children because I was just screaming at them all the time. I had a lot of anger issues. Yeah. And my marriage was on the brink of breakup. And so was our finances, because we couldn't show up and run a business or build a business because everything just felt overwhelming and scary. Yeah. And that was painful. Like, that was worth changing for.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I know that from a personal point of view, I remember when I was in pain, and I'm using sort of quotation marks from the point of view of psychological pain. It was just keeping my head above water when I was a new mum. And I'd refused to, I'd had, with my mental health and my anxiety, I can look back and see I've had anxiety, and I know I shared this on your podcast, since I was a little girl. And we know 50% of all mental health challenges that are a problem, obviously they're a challenge, come by the age of 14, so the research tells us. So it's childhood where it often begins. And I'd experienced major depressive disorder in my mid-20s, which was pretty much my body and brain's way of saying, hey, we can't cope with this chronic fight or flight activation anymore. And that was a real turning point. And as I moved through years of therapy and meditation and exercise, and this, I'm a great patient because I do what I'm told, and then some, really, really wanted to make a difference. And this was all before kids. And then ultimately becoming a mum, it was a real challenge. And the point I guess I'm leading to is I'll never forget when Peter said to me one day, I'd been hospitalised after the birth of our daughter for my mental health.
Wow.
I'd been recommended to go back on medication, and I just felt, I can do this. I can do this. I don't need medication. I really felt very strongly about that, especially while I was breastfeeding. And I remember Peter said to me one day, and I remember exactly where I was in the house and what I was doing. I was just doing something. I was actually removing something from toddler height. And he said, hey, I just want to ask you to think about something. I want you to think about trying medication again for us, for me and for the kids. Because he said, I see how much you're struggling. He said, I know how strongly you feel about being able to do this on your own, with help, obviously other professional help. But he said, could you think about it for the way that how you are struggling is affecting the rest of the family? And it was all I needed. That was what was the turning point for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'd been so in my own head and so finding it so hard to keep my head above water. I hadn't thought about how it affected us. So I really relate, because sometimes we think I can cope with this myself, but the impact we are having on the people that we love and adore can sometimes be that turning point. So I really am grateful to you for sharing that. And I love that, obviously you're in a place now where you're looking back and you've experienced so much positive change, and your expertise and your experience, lends itself so beautifully to the help that you share with your clients and are sharing with us today. So the 4 kind of areas that I know that, and you've written a book, which I can't wait for you to share with our listeners today towards the end of our chat. But you talk about kind of 4 key areas that you work with a client to make change. Can you tell us sort of a little bit about each of those?
Yeah. So the book is Ending Body Burnout, a functional medicine guide for busy women with energy, mood, and gut issues. And so it's broken up into 4 parts, which is essentially how we work with our clients as well.
Yeah.
So you can't have physical symptoms. And I would also say mental health issues as well, or symptoms, without there being some sort of body system imbalance. And so the first level of inquiry is where your body systems are at. And that's where, we do functional lab testing, and we're looking at 3 core body systems. So the neuroendocrine system, which is all about your brain, your mitochondria, your sex hormones, and also your stress hormones. And then the second part is gastrointestinal system. So what's happening at a gut level, and then detoxification pathways. So are you actually clearing toxins from the body? Now, these don't include all the organs in the body, but they're the big ones. They're the big ones at a functional level that if they're out of whack, at some point symptoms will manifest. And so I love that, like part of my journey, I try to guess a lot. And also when I started practicing, I started just doing kind of like traditional clinical nutrition, where I would look at symptoms both for myself and for clients. But it ended up being a lot of educated guesswork, which sometimes helped, but other times didn't. And so it just fast tracks looking into your systems by running some wee poo blood tests to see where your levels are at and what's out of whack and what needs support. Because you could have a symptom like anxiety, for example. If it's coming from a body systems level, it could be because your serotonin is depleted, or it also could be because your adrenals are producing too much cortisol, and that keeps you in a fight-flight response. Sometimes those are okay, and actually it's you got a really bad candida or fungal infection in the gut, which affects the brain as well because of the gut-brain connection. Or sometimes it also might be because there's heavy metals stuck in your body and it's really inflammatory and they kill off brain cells. And so if you're just trying to treat at a symptom level, it can be very overwhelming because you're kind of trying to do everything as opposed to just getting really clear on what's going on at the body systems level. Now, when I started practicing functional medicine, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I found the root cause of my health issues, and I had a lot of imbalances. So it was very exciting to see that it wasn't all just in my head.
Yes.
But what I found, so I've experienced body burnout 3 times. First and second time were after my first and second baby. The third time was in 2020 during COVID, when COVID first happened. And so, and I share this story, actually, I'll come back to that story in a second. So once you understand what's happening at the body systems level, my big question then is why? Why did the body systems burn out in the first place? Because you could take some very beautiful therapeutic natural medicines and nutrients, which we do with our clients. However, if you only stopped there, then at some point the body systems are going to burn out again if you're not addressing deeper root causes that caused the body systems to burn out in the first place.
Yeah. And
that was the case for me in COVID time. And this takes me to the next section of the book, is Heal Thy Mind. So when I was changing my diet, that's also a root cause, but my diet and taking supplements and kind of, changing my exercise, all that stuff was very lovely and healing. But I had no idea that my mind also needed some deep healing and support. Because I was the type of person that give me a treatment plan and I was very good at following it. I always thought my mindset was just for people who sabotaged treatment plans and stuff. Yeah. But then COVID happened. All my health issues flared up again because there was chronic stress and all sorts of things. And this time, no physical support helped at all. Like these symptoms were not budging. And this time I also had really chronic insomnia, which was so bad. And so I just knew, I'm like, I still haven't got to the deepest root cause, what's going on. And so that led me on a very deep dive into my unconscious mind, which controls, you've probably spoken about this on the podcast, but your unconscious mind makes up 95% of your mind, and it's also controlling every chemical reaction in your body. So it's absolutely affecting these body systems. Plus it harbors a whole heap of distressing events and unkind beliefs that you have about yourself that aren't processed properly, so that all that gets stored. So healing thy mind is really looking at what caused the burnout in the first place. And often we work with people who are overdoing, high achievers, perfectionists, people pleasers, like running patterns that are causing their body to go into a fight-flight response anyway. And so healing thy mind is really just stripping back and looking at, like, how are people, or how are you programmed? What happened before the age of 7? What beliefs do you have about yourself that maybe aren't serving you and actually causing and exacerbating these symptoms to manifest in the body systems to burn out? So that's kind of a bit about the mind. And then it's also like, how can we regulate the nervous system? Because the brain, nervous system, and unconscious mind are all interlinked. And how can we support ourselves to get out of that fight-flight response? Healing thy body. So that's more, okay, let's look at what's happening at a lifestyle issue, a point of view. So what are you eating? How are you moving? How are you sleeping? How can we optimize those so that your body systems can heal and you can have long-term health for life? And then heal thy environment is looking more at what's happening outside of you. So are you exposed to mold and hidden chemicals in skincare or cleaning products? Because that all affects our body systems as well and can prevent and cause symptoms. And also, how can you get your family on board so that You're not constantly trying to drain your cup by over-serving them or feeling like you can't actually put yourself first to be able to heal.
Oh, Filly.
That's a recap.
Yeah, that is, wow. I so appreciate, and I know it's a hard thing because I know under each of these, in each of these areas, I mean, we could spend hours talking about any one of the things that you've sort of given us the headlines for, and I really appreciate you giving us that overview of, you know, the body systems, healing thy mind, healing thy body, and healing thy environment. And I know that as you're speaking, I'm sort of thinking to myself, yes, there are things here that I want to ask, like for my own personal benefit, which is the bonus of being a podcaster, I suppose, but also thinking about what is it that will benefit, obviously, everybody. I guess making change of any kind is hard, isn't it? If I guess if a person is feeling burnt out, that the habits, the lifestyle, the nutrition or lack thereof, maybe the coping strategies that might be unhealthy, the habits, I guess, are relatively entrenched, if not severely entrenched. So I guess I would love for you to share maybe a couple of small changes that we could all make that would just help to elevate our health. But before we do that, let's, you know, how do you help your clients make change? Because it's an ongoing conversation I've had with other guests, and I had this same conversation with Craig Harper. He shared this idea that it's a bit like pushing a stationary car, that the hardest part is getting things moving, the beginning. So yeah, can you tell us how do you help support clients to make changes? Because no doubt you do it stepwise. It's not all at once. But yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of physical and a little bit of metaphysical to start off with. So the physical side of things, if someone's in, say, adrenal fatigue, that's where your cortisol, fight, flight response hormone is just going nuts and now it's kind of depleted. If someone's got a pretty significant body system imbalance that can be supported, like you talked about medication before. So using something, whether it's a medication or like in our practice, we'll use natural medicines to help kind of just spark the capacity again. Because sometimes it is hard to get going, especially to make those changes and really address root causes when you're like up here in overwhelm, or sometimes people are really shut down as well. So when you start kind of supporting these body systems and, like, you know, with whether it's magnesium and vitamin Bs, or you might have to kill off a parasite, whatever it is for the person, I find that helps with momentum, because it's kind of like a quick win. It's like, oh, I am starting to feel better and much faster. Okay, cool, this is working. Now I also have the motivation to do the things that I know I need to do in order to solve the root cause issues. Because if you don't do that, it kind of ends up just being a Band-Aid approach.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful lifesaver, and it's also really supportive. And then for people who might not have done or do lab testing, like you kind of think about, well, what are some just nice essential things, foundational things that you can do to help support your physiology? So water, like sometimes water, not many people are drinking enough water.
No, yeah.
And it can cause a lot of issues. You were talking about headaches before. I mean, that's a major cause for headaches.
Yeah.
Not every cause. It might not be the cause, but it can be as simple as, okay, let's just really make sure that we're drinking enough water, or what are we eating? Can we cut back on sugar, or can we read a book instead of watch Netflix at night that might affect our sleep? Now, I know that there still changes, but it's kind of like, what are some small physiological things that people could do that they know as an individual makes a big difference? Like sleep is number one for me. If I don't sleep well, I'm not a happy person. So it's always like a big priority. I will always choose, if I had to choose between healthy movement, healthy sleep, and healthy food, I would always choose sleep. Yeah. I love both of them, all of them, but sleep is good. So kind of just being in tune with what is something small that could make a big difference for you that can help build up your capacity. Yeah.
Quick question before you go on.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
Filtered water. Tell us about water, because I know we're in Melbourne, and I heard something on the news the other day that said something about Melbourne having the best water in the country and possibly the world. And everywhere I go when I travel, I know it's a big call, but it's obviously, what you get used to. But when I travel around the country, I never enjoy the water as much as when I do back home. So here at home, I'm in the studio right now, but we just drink from the tap. We just drink from the tap. So tell me, do we need to be drinking filtered water?
So are you in Melbourne City?
No, I'm on the Mornington Peninsula, which is about an hour south. So Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, tap water kind of probably depends on where you're located. But if you're in kind of a major city or town, there is very heavily treated with chlorine and all sorts of other things that kill off bugs. So, it stops us from getting gastro. But it's also not the best. Look, it would be best to filter or to even just buy spring water that's packaged.
Yep.
Yeah, so short answer is filter is best.
and just on that, I know that there are different, because we also have like a plumbing into our fridge, so we can put a filter in that.
Yeah.
And I think actually there is a filter in that. Probably needs replacing. But the ceramic, I see those ceramic kind of urns that sit on a table whereby you can just tap the water out, and it's got like a charcoal filter or something. Tell us what you have at home, please, Filly.
Yeah, so ceramic ones are good. I actually have, the brand is called Zazen, Zazen. I purchased it because it's kind of like one of the best. But what I love about it is it not only filters out all the nasty stuff from the water, but at the bottom of my Zazen filter, I also have all these like amazing mineral stones and alkaline beads, which help to mineralize the water and alkalinize it. So it's like perfect for the body. So that's the physical kind of quick win. From a metaphysical side of things, when someone starts working with us, especially if they're feeling really overwhelmed and maybe they're struggling to even take a supplement, then to move into changing, rather than trying to change anything behavioral wise, it's just getting curious. It's around, what are the patterns that I'm playing out? And doing it with curiosity and no self-judgment. Because the moment that guilt, shame, frustration comes into it, which is really natural and normal, but the moment that happens, then any self-awareness between your conscious and unconscious mind just closes up. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice. If someone's sort of like, all right, I want to do some change work, I'm going to change some things in my life, I'm going to get healthy, is without trying to force change, just get curious. Just in the same way that we run lab testing to look at the body systems, it's like, well, where are all the kind of dysfunctional patterns showing up in your life? What are the things that you don't want anymore? What are the things that you do want? And then just get curious around it. Okay, well, why is it there? And in our practice, we always have a saying, every behavior has a belief underneath. So if it's a resourceful behavior and a healthy one, then there must be a great belief underneath that. But if it's an unhealthy one or something that's causing more burnout or preventing you from healing or self-sabotage, then there must be a self-limiting, like dysfunctional belief underneath that. And when we can start looking at that with curiosity and maybe even a little bit of play, like it's just an experiment, just in the same way we did lab testing, we're just kind of like peering into the soul. It helps people to actually get change work or to start having shifts unconsciously much faster, which then when you change those deeper beliefs about yourself, naturally with less effort and with more ease, behavior starts changing. And that's why I put Heal Thy Mind as the second part in the book, before we even change the way that we're eating or sleeping or moving or our environment. Let's change those deeper dysfunctional things that are happening in the unconscious.
Thank you for sharing that as another approach that our listeners can take. The idea of approaching something with curiosity just takes away any pressure, doesn't it? This idea that let's just explore and see what happens, and thinking like a scientist and being experimental. And like you said a moment ago, I love that, and I'm going to try to repeat what you said, and please correct me if I get it wrong. Every behaviour has a belief underneath. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even just make a note of that, listeners, or just keep that top of mind so that you can look, almost zoom out a little bit and have a look at the way that you operate during the day. And I think about, when you said that, I think about my exercise. I think because I love to exercise, always have. And what's the belief underneath that behaviour? That it makes me, it's the best thing for my mental health, that it's great for my heart, it's great for my bones, it's excellent for my muscle mass. I connect with people. The beliefs underneath that behaviour, I understand why I do it, but I've never thought about it from the point of view, what are my beliefs about this action? And yes, anyway, goodness, so much to talk about, so little time. We'll have to leave it there for today, but I really want to leave a couple of minutes so that listeners can learn about how they can work with you. And I know that you're in Tassie, but you do work virtually. So fear not if you are like me and you're in Melbourne or you're in Queensland or the Northern Territory or anywhere else. How can people connect with you and work with you, and also grab a copy of your book so that they can start to sort of support themselves in the meantime?
Yeah, awesome. So probably our best place to find us is on our website, www.chrisandfilly.fm. There's probably some funny spellings in there, so you can pop it in the show notes.
Yes.
But that's where you can also grab a copy of my book. We also have a podcast, as Jodi mentioned. She was on our podcast recently. And so that's a good way of just, we only had a short period of time today, but binging out on our podcast, reading the book will help fill in all the blanks that we didn't get to cover today.
Yes.
So we are based in Tasmania, but we are a virtual practice. So we work with people Australia-wide and also internationally. And if you're curious, I'd probably just start off with the book, the podcast. We have some really cool free scorecards as well that look at the different areas that we talked about. What area might be out of whack for you? What do you need to work on? And I'm also pretty social on Facebook and Instagram, so you can come and connect with me there.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's the beauty of, like you suggested, the podcast. And I mentioned it earlier but forgot to mention it just now. I'm so glad you did, because it really is a beautiful way for people to sort of, expand on the kind of the things that we've talked about today, and to dive into topics that they really want to kind of get stuck into a little bit deeper. And I think that one of the things that I know about practitioners like yourself working with clients is that it's the trust and it's the relationship over and above even the skill and the expertise. And the skill and the expertise we assume as a patient when we come to a practitioner, but the trust and the relationship is everything, and it's really part of that sort of therapeutic process as well. And I really love that I've been able to have this conversation with you and introduce you to so many listeners. And I do hope, listeners, that you take a step based on what we've discussed today, whether that's just getting a Zazen filter or thinking differently about just how you operate during the day. You don't have to do anything that costs money, or you can take some steps to make some significant change and everything in between. So, Filly, I so appreciate you. I love your work. I thank the wonderful Dr. Christy Goodwin for connecting us. And I really, really am grateful to you for your time today.
Thank you so much. It's been so awesome to chat with you, and I'm very grateful to be able to share all this goodness with your listeners.
Thank you. Thanks again, and thank you, listeners. Thank you so much, and please share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it, because there's just so much gold that we've talked about today. And as always, I'm so grateful for your company. So I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.